Our friends over at iMac have also been highlighting this, by the way. In a new piece, they've laid out how the legacy media ignored the story. They write that either the press ignored it or genuinely had no clue that it was going on. Yeah, right. For more, let's bring in the editor-in-chief of iMac Newsline, Shane Harris, with us here this morning. Shane, thanks for being here. So, I mean, look, how insulting is it that the media really expects us to believe that they knew nothing about Joe Biden's cognitive decline? I mean, talk about gaslighting, despite the fact that everyday Americans, they could see it basically from day one. So look, this idea that they missed the story, you know, this is what we hear from the media. They missed the story. They didn't miss the story. They were part of the cover-up, even though they want to say now that it was just the White House covering it up. Good morning, by the way, Shane.
Yeah, good morning. That's right. Look, as I write in the piece, there are two distinct possibilities here. The first, which is what the media wants us to believe, is that they really had no idea that Joe Biden was in a severe state of cognitive decline, despite the fact that they have more access to the president than anybody else in the country. And as you say, all of us, we've been covering this story all the way going back to 2021 at iMac Newsline. They expect us to believe that they really had no idea. Well, if that's true, then what good is the legacy media if they can't even see what's right in front of their faces? What good are they? Why should we trust them? Right. The second and more likely possibility is that they knew the entire time, and once that lie became impossible to maintain, they're now trying to cover for themselves by pinning blame on unnamed White House staffers. You know, it's very interesting that we're not getting any names here. It's just, oh, the White House staff lied to us. And it's interesting that they're still trying to cover for their buddies in the Biden-Harris administration, and they don't want to tell us the truth. So either way, whether they really had no clue and they're just clueless, or whether they knew and they lied to us anyways, it doesn't look good for the legacy media, particularly when the rest of us out here, just everyday Americans, knew that Joe Biden was not fit to be president. Heading into 2024, 60% of Americans, including a majority of Democrats, said that Biden was too old to run for office. But still, the media was telling us, no, he's fine. He's sharper than ever. It's impossible to believe, and it doesn't look good for the legacy media.
Shane, I'm curious to get your take on the idea. Had President Biden stayed in the race, had he even potentially won, would they have continued to propagate that lie? Would they have continued to push that narrative, oh, he's okay, even though we all saw he wasn't?
Yeah, that's kind of the great what-ifs in American political history, I think, or it will become one of the great what-ifs. We know from the reporting that there were Biden aides as early as 2023 who were talking about if the president were to win re-election, he would need a wheelchair in his second term. So once the president's in a wheelchair, I think it becomes a little bit more difficult to maintain the lie that he's totally good to go, that he has no physical or mental decline. But that being said, I wouldn't put anything past the media. The thing is, you know, it was never a very believable lie to begin with. It's just after the debate, it became absolutely impossible to maintain that lie. They saw that it was going to lose them the White House. But if he would have managed to avoid that debate disaster, carry through to the election, and somehow win, I wouldn't put anything past the corporate press.
You know what's fascinating right now is the Democrats have suddenly become the purveyors of all things mentally sound. Of course, they're trying to say that President Trump is incompetent, mentally unsound, unfit. They're trying to say that Fetterman, because of course Fetterman has come out for Israel a couple times now, so he's off the list because you can't deviate from the Democrat narrative. So now they're trying to say that he's mentally insane, and I deep dove on that, and I can't find anything that sounds like he's actually insane. He yelled at somebody. That's not insanity. That happens every single day here in the Beltway where David Brody lurks. So my question for you is, what makes the Democrats sudden experts and purveyors of what sanity is?
Yeah, it's pretty ironic because I think if you were to ask the everyday American, they would tell you that the Democrats are the insane ones, the ones who are lobbying the accusations of insanity. They're the ones who are the least in touch with reality, right? You mentioned Fetterman. It's interesting that back when he was running for Senate and he had clearly more issues with speech, with keeping his train of thought, they were saying, oh, no, he's completely fine. Everything's good. But now he seems to have actually recovered quite well from his stroke. which is great to see. We're all happy to see that. Nobody wishes ill on any member of Congress, no matter what party they're in. But now again, as you say, that he's breaking with the Democrat Party line. Now they're saying, oh, he's insane, and that's really just indicative of what the Democrat Party thinks, right? If you don't agree with their progressive ideology, they think, oh, something must be wrong with you. And of course, they're telling us at the same time Joe Biden's fine, President Trump's crazy. It's kind of a bizarro world that the Democrats are living in.
Classic projection, David Brody. That's what we call it in the psych field. Classic projection.
Yeah, no doubt. You got a lot to work with in the psych field with Biden. All right, Shane Harris, appreciate it. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you.